Happy Friday. Thanks for hanging out here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Congratulations to all involved. You made it. Coach Mack will be here with us at 11:20. We got Jackson, Lucas, and me until 1 o'clock, 615-737-1045. That's how you jump in. Also, access to the F&M Bank chat if you want to get involved on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Obviously, the Titans and the Jets are on the docket coming up Sunday at Nissan Stadium. But the game last night between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills, two other AFC East opponents that are also on your schedule in the not-too-distant future, is probably the place that we have to start today. Now, we could start with a 31-10 loss for the Dolphins or a 31-10 win by the Buffalo Bills, depending on how you want to look at it. But the game was hardly the story coming out of last night's action because Tua Tagovailoa, after a shaky performance and a Levis-esque interception, pick six type of situation, later on in the game, he would end up suffering a concussion. And this is a really difficult situation for a player. He's 26 years old, Tua Tagovailoa. He's married. He's got kids. There are going to be calls this morning for Tua, who has experienced yet another concussion and another scary situation where you see his hands start to do the, I don't want to call it, it almost looks like they're cramping up a little bit.
Posturing, right?
Is that what it's called? So he's doing this posturing thing with his hands again after he experiences the concussion, and immediately you're like, oh, please, God, not again. Not again for this person who has dealt with it on a variety of different fronts and has cost himself a good amount of playing time throughout the course of his career. Now we're having a discussion about whether Tua Tagovailoa should continue to play football. And this is the sad reality. It's been a while since we've had one of these moments. They all seem to, at least lately, circulate around Tua. Anytime the concussion discussion starts up again, it's typically been because of Tua, because he has had frequent reoccurrences of these things. And again, not a medical expert, but my understanding on concussions is once you have one, the reoccurrence of the concussions become far more frequent, especially in a sport like football. And I'm not going to sit here today and, talk about, well, Tua absolutely has to retire. It's irresponsible for him to continue to do football because there's going to be plenty of people who are going to grandstand today on behalf of Tua Tagovailoa. Nor am I going to tell him, nor am I going to take the position of, he just got paid. He is going to try and tough it out in certain situations. This is a part of the risk that comes with football. I'm not going to make a decision for Tua today, nor should anybody, other than to remark on the fact that it's scary. And I guess from my standpoint, I'm just happy that he made it to his second contract because a certain amount of money will be guaranteed whether he decides to play football into the future or not. But for the foreseeable future, Tua Tagovailoa is not going to be the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins because he's going to miss additional time dealing with yet another concussion. There is a good thread by Mike Giannitti, who runs SpotTrack.com. If you're unfamiliar, that's the website that basically, if you want to armchair GM, it's a really good resource, not just in football, but across several different kind of sports. And I thought that he articulated this well. At SpotTrack is where you can read this tweet. While a full recovery is the only real focus here in response to questions regarding Tua Tagovailoa's contract, the deal includes $167 million guaranteed for injury, $43 million of which has been paid already in 2024. If he's medically cleared to return to football but opts to retire, he will forego the remaining $124 million guaranteed, barring a custom settlement. If he's medically forced into retirement, he has a right to collect the $124 million that remain. The other side of this question gets a little tougher. If Tua is able to pass a physical next March, the Dolphins will have the ability to release him with only his $50 million of 2025 compensation on the hook. Tua's 2026 compensation, $54 million, becomes fully guaranteed on March 14th. A post-June 1 release prior to this means $83.6 million of dead cap across 2025 and 2026. So there's the football element of it. There's, of course, the personal element of it, and then there's the financial element of it. It's a complicated situation for Tua. And of course, everybody across the league and, everybody listening and all of us here are just hoping that he, for the sake of him and his family, can return to as much of full health as humanly possible. But I don't know. If I was in this situation, obviously I've never been a professional athlete. I've never been a quarterback like this. I've never made $50 million a year in my business. So I can't speak with any kind of personal knowledge on what kind of decision I would make in a spot like this. But it made me sad. It made me sad to watch all that play out last night, and especially the picture that's making the rounds this morning of Mike McDaniel kissing him on the forehead as they're walking into the locker room. Mike McDaniel's got his arm around Tua's shoulder, and I know he's given some quotes to the effect of, "That's my guy, you just hate to be a part of anything like that." Scary stuff.
The scary thing with Tua is oftentimes it's not one of those hits that everybody's kind of braces for, oh God, is he okay? Like a lot of times with Tua, like last night, it looks like a fairly routine play, right? It's not like, there was the one, I think 2 years ago against the Bengals where he had his head bounced off the ground and it was a really scary situation. But last night, it just kind of looks like he's getting tackled by Damar Hamlin.
Which is the cruel football irony of Damar Hamlin, the one making that hit. Oof.
But that's the scary thing about it. And at some point, you just start to worry about his quality of life down the road for somebody that is known to be just a really, really good human being that kind of the country started to get to know once he got to Alabama from Hawaii as a 5-star recruit out of high school. Jackson, do we have Josh Allen talking about Tua after the game with Cameron Wolf?
Jump in.
What was that? That wasn't Josh Allen, was it?
Well, understanding what's happened in the past and just knowing that I'm praying for him and his family. He's a great football player, but I've been around him outside of the football field and an even amazing human, an even more amazing human. So, again, prayers are going out to him and his family, and hopefully everything's all right.
And, that sentiment is being echoed by a variety of different people, including, for example, Jeff Simmons, who tweeted this morning for prayers up for our NFL brother Tua. Can only imagine what him and his family are going through right now. And I just hate that, because I know where this is headed. It's going to turn into sports talk fodder, and people are going to be making proclamations on behalf of Tua today, and that's just not something that I'm interested in doing.
Well, unfortunately, the football side of it does creep up, and Mike McDaniel is answering questions about it today with the media. He said Skylar Thompson is their backup quarterback. Sounds like they're going to move forward with him, but also sounds like they're going to sign a veteran quarterback. And here we go again with Ryan Tannehill's name popping up like it did after Jordan Love went down. Packers did not go in that direction. Obviously, there's a familiarity there with that organization and Ryan Tannehill.
I know what was reported, but it's my understanding that Tannehill wasn't interested in that Packers gig either, because it's short term and he's looking for something more long term.
Yeah, I don't blame him for not wanting to live in Green Bay for 2 to 3 months as we get closer to winter.
No thanks.
Yeah, good on that. Good on that.
So I did see a lot of people making the natural connection. Can you imagine if this team had back-to-back games against Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill?
That would be something. But the reality is they're probably going to have back-to-back games against backup quarterbacks. Malik Willis and Skylar Thompson, whoever is starting for the Dolphins on that Monday Night Football game. Should we hear from Ryan Tannehill?
Yes, so this is courtesy of the Scoop City podcast, where Ryan Tannehill did an interview with our friend Diana Rossini and her co-host Chase Daniel, the former NFL quarterback, talking about the right situation that he would need to have to sign another deal.
In shape and staying ready if the right thing pops up and comes available, but also at the same time just really enjoying where I'm at and the time with the family.
But would you want to be a backup? Like, explain the right opportunity. Do you want to pull a Flacco? He won comeback player of the year. He should have, like one of those things like that. Or are you like officially retired? Like, where's your head at right now?
Right now I think it's going to depend on situation, right? It's not at this point. I've been blessed to play 12 years and be where I'm at. So I'm just trying to weigh all those options, right? When the situation occurs, nothing really felt right, through free agency, and through that, I had a lot of peace with it. That nothing outstanding jumped up, and so just said, hey, I'll take a step back, and if something comes up on down the road, whether that's training camp, maybe a guy goes down on a team and gives me a call, you never know what's going to happen, right? So just keeping the options open, but at the same time, not waiting on pins and needles for that call, right? I'm enjoying where I'm at, enjoying where my feet are at, where my family life is, and if something comes up, then fantastic. I'll jump wholeheartedly into it.
So that's Ryan Tannehill speaking on the Scoop City podcast about the right opportunity that would have to arise. Now, as Lucas mentioned earlier, Mike McDaniel said they're going to roll forward with Skylar Thompson. It's a next man up type of situation. And the other part of this is to bring it home beyond just who's on the schedule. This is why it's so important for Will Levis to learn how to take care of himself. This is something that he hasn't experienced a concussion or anything like that, but he puts himself in harm's way on a regular basis. And I know that he's built like he can take a hit, and he can absolutely take a hit and all these other things. But the emphasis on the quarterback having the recognition and awareness to further protect themselves beyond what the game has already allowed certain protections for. It's not a concussion thing. He hasn't sustained an injury because of his own, I don't want to call it recklessness, but we'll call it aggressiveness. That the injury that he suffered last year, the high ankle sprain, was because of the offensive line and also hip drop tackle situation for both him and Tannehill, ironically enough. But just, again, emphasis on learning how to protect yourself at the quarterback position, because that position does carry more longevity than the average, NFL career. Not if you play that way. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. So we'll pivot, talk some Titans coordinators yesterday. Speaking to the media, they discussed a variety of correctable issues. You'll hear from Nick Holtz and Denard Wilson coming up next. Martin Lawnscapes is a great company that is here to help you with your landscaping or hardscaping needs. They offer free estimates and will give you an honest assessment of what it takes to make your project a reality or provide you with better options for your space. In fact, this is a process that I just went through. Next Monday, Lee and his crew at Martin Lawnscapes are coming out to make sure that my front yard looks the way that it needs to look, and not just the aesthetic part of it, but functionality as well. I have a tall and skinny. I've got drainage issues on either side of the house. They're going to install a couple of different kinds of drains and also make sure that it fits with the aesthetic of the home, specific to my home, and they offer fair pricing. In an economy where everyone is blaming inflation, Martin Lawnscapes is known to keep it fair. They own their equipment, and there is no upcharge for rental of equipment or staff, just fair upfront pricing from the beginning. And their communication is on time and open throughout the entire process. None of the not showing up or leaving early with only part of the work done. If something changes with the timetable of completion for your project, you will always be the first to know. Hardscapes, retaining walls, overseating and aerating, patios, pavers, walkways, and so many more options for you to maximize your space. Visit them online at martinlawnscapes.co. That's martinlawnscapes.co, or call them at 615-878-6493. Martin Lawnscapes, your yard, your way. Welcome back. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. In fact, I think I'm going to need to go to Hattie B's to clear out my sinuses. People are commenting on the fact that I sound like somebody's holding my nose when I talk, and also on Lucas's RBF. Are you okay? Are you well?
I guess it is a case of RBF today. We were
look particularly miserable.
Well, we were having a solemn conversation in the first segment. So, no, I did not have a big fat grin on my face as we were talking about worrying about Tua's quality of life in 10 years.
Well, it's like when you don't participate in interviews because I'm having a back and forth or something like that, and you just look outright disinterested. It's just your face.
Yeah.
Like when you remark on why my face looks the way that it does, it's just my face. Like there's nothing that I can do about it. So I'm glad that you've joined this unfortunate part of it as we are live streamed on camera for 4 hours a day.
Lucas is going to pick up hobbies during interviews from now on.
I'm going to start knitting. Crochet.
We've talked about doing that, and then like everything else around here, we don't follow through on the things that we say we're going to do that would be funny bits. But people are saying, Lucas, please confirm everything is okay. And if you need anything, blink twice. Blink twice if you're in danger.
Is it that bad? My goodness.
Well, yeah, you look miserable, bud. It's Friday.
We're
it's
having
going to
a
be
great
okay.
time.
I know you have to work all weekend. I know you got high school football tonight. I know you got soccer tomorrow, and the soccer team is a particular suffering right now, and then Titans radio duties tomorrow or Sunday rather, but it's going to be okay. It's still the weekend to an extent.
I feel very fortunate to have these jobs this weekend.
Your body language would indicate otherwise. 615-737.
We're having a great time.
1045. Is it because it's Friday the 13th? Who was that caller that called in saying that they were very confident that they did not fear their sister, I believe it was, getting married on Friday the 13th here recently? We had a caller at some point this week or last week.
This was last week.
It was last week during like Friday Fire or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I remember being complimentary of the confidence in the move to have a wedding on Friday the 13th. Just standing superstition right in the face and giving it the middle finger, essentially. I respect
that guy won, like our giveaway.
You what the Friday the 13th guy won the giveaway?
Yeah, I want to say he made us laugh the most, so we gave it to him.
Well, speaking of Friday Fire, which is at 11:45, we have things to give away today, yes?
Yes, 2 tickets to Jeffrey Simmons' charity event.
Okay, that is, what's the date on Jeffrey Simmons' charity event? I want to say it's at some point next week, during the week, right? It's like next Monday. Can you give me a date at your convenience? All right, Jackson will work on that. Meanwhile, we'll get to the phone call, 615-737-1045. You're also going to hear from Denard Wilson, Colt Anderson, and Nick Holtz on corrections that need to be made for their 3 respective units heading into this Jets game. Ryan is in construction up first.
Hall of Famer Troy Aikman started out Oklahoma, had to go to UCLA. His first 11 games, 0-11, 9 touchdowns, 18 interceptions, 53%. Next year, 11, 18, 56%. Josh Allen, 53%, 10 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And what about y'all trying to get back in good graces with Diana Rossini? You didn't want to play it when she wanted you to. Well, you played it today.
I already texted Diana that exact same thing. I said, oh, now Lucas wants to use your Tannehill clip.
That's right. Now we pander to Diana.
Correct. So Diana will join us at some point next week.
For the Jeffrey.
You have a date?
Do you not hear me talking?
I did.
What?
Jackson just chimed me in saying, I have a date. Where you guys going?
Where are you going? What's her name?
You asked for the thing.
What thing?
The giveaway.
What's the date?
Monday.
This coming Monday.
Okay.
For the Jeffrey Simmons charity event.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for just Kool-Aid manning your way into the conversation with that. Thank you very much. I appreciate all your great work. 615-737-1045. All right. Corrections that need to be made. Where do you start? Well, you start with the quarterback. The quarterback is I'm not going to say, well, he was the biggest issue on Sunday against the Bears because he lost the game. There were plenty of other issues. Special teams an issue. Offensive line and pass protection an issue, but no more glaring than the quarterback who gave the game away because of the decision-making and because he's not comfortable. So, Nick Holtz was asked a question about Will Levis and going back to old habits, specific to the quarterback and his decision-making. This was the Titans OC on, well, I guess this was yesterday.
I think there were times that he was really good against pressure, especially early in the game. I think kind of the ball came out. and I thought he saw it well. Like on the last play, he knew he was hot. You know what I mean? He knew he was hot. They brought a great blitz from the field. He knew all those things, so he saw it well. So I didn't see panicky, and it's just a physical error compounded by a little bit of a mental error of not throwing it away. So I do think that was part of it. And then I think you go back to watching some of the game as the game went on in times of stress. All positions on our team went back to a little bit of some old habits. You know what I mean? You kind of saw, and that's across the board, whether it was some of the receivers in their routes, some of the linemen in their pass sets, the quarterback drifting into pressure a little bit, kind of, getting his feet off kilter. So I thought it was kind of group wide a little bit at the end. A lot of problems compounded each other, not just Will.
And I don't necessarily disagree with that, because if he's getting sped up, it's because he's not comfortable. If he's not comfortable, it's because he's got pressure in his face. If he's got pressure in his face, it's because the offensive line isn't doing the best job in front of him, which was, in fact, the case throughout the course of that game. Now, Jets have a good front. Bears have a good front. Fair to expect he's going to be bothered. He's going to have to learn how to work out of muddy pockets, and I can't worry about him every time there's even remotely pressure around him that he's going to do something boneheaded, like dirt it before the play requires you to dirt it, or try and do something with a high percentage risk the way that he did at the end of that game. So, how much do you trust him? We talked about this yesterday. Titans fans are willing to give him, it seems like, a degree of benefit of the doubt, though I'm sure that he looked at his phone last night at some point, realized he was trending again, and wondered what the hell happened, only to look up and see that Tua threw damn near the exact same pick six that he did on Thursday Night Football prior to the concussion situation. Old habits. All right. Levis at Kentucky. How much there's a lot made of his decision-making at Kentucky during the 2 years that he was there. But how much of that is pinned specifically on his final year in 2022 versus what he was in 2021, which is a player that was making his case to be the number one overall pick the following year? The roster talent at Kentucky took a dip. The offensive line, the wide receivers, he was dealing with an injury. He played through it. Whether or not you want to give him bonus points for playing through injury ended up costing him, and some of the decisions that he made during that season, his final season at Kentucky, were brought into question. Vols fans are very, very quick to bring it up. But we weren't having that conversation around Will Levis as if this was the one thing that you knew was wrong with him in 2021 versus 2022, correct?
I think that's a little bit of revisionist history. That was part of the conversation in 2021.
Okay, I don't remember it being as out there.
I mean, it's very easy to forget. Like, if you ask somebody out of the blue, did Will Levis throw more interceptions in 2021 or 2022? They'd probably very quickly say 2022. That's not the answer. He threw 13 picks in 2021. It's just the upside was more on full display in a better situation around him. And then in 2022, things got worse. He's playing through injury. The offensive line's not good. Wan'Dale Robinson left to go to the draft. His only worthy target is a true freshman in Barryon Brown, and he's really pressing to try to make up for those things, and it led to some bad situations. But he turned the ball over more in the season that we all point to as the reason why he would be a good NFL quarterback than he did in 2022. I think that was always a factor. It's just the upside was more on display in that 21 season.
There are some comments on YouTube from somebody named Stupid But Yeah. He says, not a big fan of Holtz so far. Kind of gives me Todd Downing in over his head vibes. That's hilarious because your head coach is the play caller. So I'm not sure what you're taking issue with Nick Holtz other than his vantage point, his perspective during games from the box, because otherwise you have nothing else to evaluate Nick Holtz on, and that's just a ridiculous comment to me. If you're going to take issue with your offensive play caller, turns out that's your head coach. So, make sure that you're buttoned up before you're divvying out that criticism that way. And it's like Ben was in here the other day talking about the division of labor when Arthur Smith was the OC. Todd Downing ran the red zone. They were one of the best red zone offenses in football while Arthur Smith was the OC. Arthur handled the passing game, and then I'm trying to remember who he said was specific to the running game and how much more handprints they had on the running game because there was Keith Carter, the former offensive line coach. So it's always a joint effort, even if you try to pin it on the one person who's ultimately responsible for calling the plays. Just something to keep in mind. So, from Levis to special teams, because that was the other thing that, of course, cost them big in that game against Chicago, the blocked punt for a touchdown that ended up bringing the score from 17-3 to 17-10. This is Colt Anderson, the Titans special teams coach, talking about the kick returns and the special teams unit in general.
I think it's just going to hit a little faster than you think. Preseason, I don't know if the starting returners were out there per se for every team. That returner for Chicago did a really good job. That return got on us fast. I think our guys felt that. So we just got to do a better job, just playing with more speed and getting ready to redirect and get off blocks.
So that's specific to the kick returns, which is something that, of course, cost the Titans dearly. There was a 67-yard return in the middle of that. Velus Jones tried to give them some advantages with fumbles that have plagued him since he was drafted by the Bears. Was he a third-round pick?
Off the top of my head, I think so. I think that sounds right. Yes, but it's not gone well for Velus Jones Jr.
So he was benched as the returner in that game, and then number 11, whose name escapes me, came out there and diced him up. And also, you saw for the first time some of the blocking schematics, some of the blocking tactics that were going to be able to spring a kick returner in this new quote-unquote dynamic kickoff, because that's exactly what happened. If you go back and you can find these clips on social media or the internet of how the Bears exactly sprung number 11, the kick returner, on that particular return, it's something that you're going to see a lot of teams experimenting with and deploying to try and get the most out of this kickoff return, other than, the teams that are just going to kick it out of the back of the end zone and take the touchback.
DeAndre Carter also averaged almost 13 yards per punt return.
That's the Bears' return.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's the 11 you were referring to?
Number
okay.
11.
Yeah, DeAndre Carter. Yeah. So to hear Colt Anderson talk about how they almost, it's like they weren't prepared for the speed of a starting kick returner in the NFL.
That's concerning.
After the preseason. Sure. And, they're not the only ones. The Bills gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown against the Cardinals, and the Monday Night Football broadcast, they're touting how the dynamic kickoff made it to where the average starting field position was 5 yards better than last year. But I don't put a ton of stock in that, because for the most part, still just kicking it out of the back of the end zone.
For the most part.
And that puts teams on the 30. So, yes, the average starting field position is going to be slightly better.
But you know who didn't benefit from that this past Sunday? The Titans did not benefit from the same kind of field position advantage that the Chicago special teams unit was able to get them. They were regularly getting the benefit of better field position than the Titans were. And then to the defense. The defense, there's no real issues to highlight because the defense performed excellently. And if you look, depending on what metrics you look at, they are one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in terms of total yardage coming out of week one. We've talked about this before. I do not expect them to hold Aaron Rodgers down as well as they did Caleb Williams. Those are two very, very different players, even if Rodgers is closer to the end of the career than he is to the beginning. And with everything else that you saw from the defense, the only corrections, it's not even a correction, the only thing that you would want from the defense more is a more consistent pass rush presence opposite Harold Landry, which of course is Arden Key, and that's been a talking point for us for several years now, since Arden signed. Well, I guess Arden signed last year. Last year was Arden's first year with the Titans, if I remember correctly. He's in the second year of a 3-year deal.
Yes, because he was with Jacksonville in 2022.
So, with all that, the offensive line, the special teams, and the quarterback's decision-making are the three things that must be correctable. Now, we put it to a poll. I'd be curious to see what people think. At Buck Rising on Twitter, you can always vote on the polls, and we'll update them at the end of the show, presented by Two Rivers Ford. What are people considering the most correctable issues from the three primary issues that the Titans had against Chicago?
So special teams, pass protection, and mistakes from Will Levis.
Yep.
I would want to say the mistakes from Levis because, again...
No, I'm asking you what the feedback on the poll is.
Okay.
The
feedback on the poll,
what do you think? People think.
What do you think the majority of people are saying?
I bet that special teams errors got the majority of the votes. I would imagine that Will Levis and his decision-making was second, and the offensive line and pass pro was third.
Yeah, and it's close. Special teams has 46.7% of the vote. Will Levis has 44.2%. The Levis mistakes, beyond the misses, because those are concerning, but in terms of the turnovers, specifically the pick six, the second interception is what it is, right? He's throwing it up. It's 4th and 10. It's a desperation play anyway. But in terms of the pick six, it is as simple as just take the sack, which theoretically should be an easier thing to do than trying to shovel it out in a crazy way at the sideline.
Just turtle. You know, you don't even have to take the hit. Just turtle.
Yes.
Peyton Manning made a career out of it.
To the ground. So, in theory, on paper, that feels like the most correctable thing that lost the Titans the game last week going into week 2. But then that also feels like a mindset thing with Will Levis. How do you coach that out of his mindset? Because it also, in theory, should be easy to correct a quarterback's ability or lack of ability to slide. And that has yet to happen in 10 starts with Will Levis. So I probably would go with special teams here.
Well, that's the thing, because we brought this up yesterday. We've been talking to him for the better part of a year now about correcting how he takes hits. And he has yet to noticeably correct the way he puts himself in danger. So I think the way that the question was asked was, can you understand why people might be reticent to think that you can make corrections here when we've been talking to you about one specific thing for the past year plus, and the correction has yet to be made to the satisfaction of everybody, whether it's the coaching staff, the fans, the media, whomever. His mindset, because here's the thing. Players in their day-to-day lives operate with a certain kind of mindset, right? When they're on the field, it's a totally different situation. Like, you don't know what's going through these guys' heads, right? It's rage, it's passion, it's excitement, it's stress. It's all these different things that combine. So it's almost like, how do you better direct Will Levis's fight or flight reactions to these kind of situations? Because more often than not, his reaction is fight. And you like that. It gives you some juice. It gives you some energy. There's obvious fire that the quarterback possesses. But if it is to the detriment of not just the quarterback, but the entire offense, then how do you curb that fight instinct in certain situations? It's a difficult dynamic that coaches are tasked with, right? Because you don't want to take it away from him entirely. You're going to alter who the player is if you try and completely correct the behavior or completely alter the behavior. So it's I know Titans fans aren't going to want to hear it this way, because again, we are living in a society that wants microwaved results on everything. But Will Levis is just going to have to see more of these situations and have more opportunities to make the right decisions before we can viably figure out whether he's going to end up making the right decisions moving forward in the future. And it doesn't mean that it'll completely go away, but just to decrease the percentage chance of him making bonehead plays or putting himself in harm's way is what you're looking for here. 615-737-1045 is the number. You'll hear from Denard Wilson later on in the show. You have an SEC stat of the day?
I sure do. It's about the Tennessee Volunteers and the biggest strength on their roster, and it's probably not who you're thinking.
That's next. Hey guys, the Tennessee Men's Clinic is a great resource if you're somebody who's dealing with erectile dysfunction and maybe shy about seeking help, or maybe you've gone to a doctor, your family doctor, about ED. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you work through those misconceptions and debunk them. Lots of guys assume that if the pills don't work, they have no other options than irreversible surgery to treat their erectile dysfunction. And the sad reality is that if you go to a doctor to treat your ED, those may be the only protocols that they have available to you. The Tennessee Men's Clinic specializes in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do, and this makes them the experts in the field. They have access to multiple protocols and options to treat your ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your specific body. Don't trust your health to an online pharmacy, and don't feel like you are out of options. We want you to understand all your options for treating ED. The Tennessee Men's Clinic protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything, from low-T, ED treatments that increase size, stamina, and everything else in between. The bottom line, no one has more expertise and experience in successfully treating men's sexual health issues than the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they are passionate about what they do. So schedule an appointment online today or call them for their Franklin or Midtown location, 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090 or online at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
Let's talk about the biggest strength of this Tennessee football team, and it's not the quarterback. It's not Nico Iamaleava. Now, could he be what powers Tennessee and the offense, everything you think about when you think of Josh Heupel? Yes, absolutely, and they need him to be that. But the deepest, most talented unit on this Tennessee football team is the front seven, headlining a defense that has not allowed a touchdown in 12 quarters now. The last time Tennessee allowed a touchdown was in the regular season finale in the blowout win against Vanderbilt in 2023 on Thanksgiving weekend. So this is courtesy of Tennessee football SID Bill Martin. In this 12-quarter streak where Tennessee has not allowed a touchdown, opposing teams are averaging 2.28 yards per carry. They're averaging 3.2 yards per play, 181 yards per game, and opponents are 6 of 41 on third down. Tennessee has 26 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, and 7 takeaways in those 3 games. Of course, the 3 opponents are Iowa from the bowl game last year, UTC, and NC State from this past Saturday. I understand the competition will increase. Tennessee takes on Kent State on Saturday.
The mighty Golden Flashes at 0-2.
Jackson checking in with Rocky Top. Yes, the Kent State Golden Flashes are terrible.
Yes.
They have won 1 game in their last 14. 1 game since the start of the 2023 season. To say that it is a rebuild for Kent State is an understatement. So the Maction at Neyland Stadium it should not be very competitive. But I say all of these stats to say there are a lot of other SEC teams that are not doing these things against opponents they should be doing them against. Alabama against USF, LSU against McNeese State, South Carolina against Old Dominion. So Tennessee's defense, for me, is the biggest reason why the Vols are starting to get mentioned as title contenders. And that might sound insane because they've got potentially at some point a Heisman contender at quarterback. He looks fantastic, Nico Iamaleava, but they had that in 2022. And while they looked like it for a while, hindsight's 2020, but we found out that 2022 team was not a national championship contender. It just wasn't. It didn't have the roster, it didn't have the defense or the depth to be a legitimate championship contender. And we saw that play out in the loss to South Carolina. But this Tennessee team does. And when you can rotate Omar Norman Lott and Bryson Eason and Tyree West and Omari Thomas on the defensive line, and the fact that James Pierce hasn't even registered a sack yet, he's being taken out of games by opposing defenses, and guys like Joshua Josephs, and guys like Joshua Josephs are reaping the benefits. So this Tennessee front seven is flexing through the first couple of games. The strength of schedule will increase drastically after this week. And it'll be interesting to see if they can continue that streak against, again, a terrible Kent State team on Saturday.
Yeah, it's kind of like, so Tennessee is currently tied for the 10th best scoring defense right now in football. But again, the level of competition for everybody right now is pretty poor. They're tied with Boston College and James Madison, allowing 6.5 points per game. Missouri and Purdue, the number 1 scoring defenses right now because they have yet to allow a point. Missouri through 2 games, Purdue through 1. Indiana in the top 10 there as well. Missouri, Purdue, Mississippi, Georgia, Ohio State, Indiana, Washington, Texas, Utah, then Boston College, James Madison, and Tennessee. If this season ends up, and obviously, you know, the reason that Vols fans are galvanized is Nico, right? Like the biggest reason that Vols fans are galvanized is the quarterback, understandably so. But I mean, I don't have to sit here and when you say it might surprise people, I don't think it surprises Tennessee fans because obviously they pay close attention to recruiting. They understand the profile of the players that they have already on the roster. And the thing that sticks out to me is if Nico ends up being more passenger than catalyst this season, that's 100% okay.
That's almost best case scenario.
That would be the best case scenario. If you don't have to lean on, and I know he's a redshirt freshman, he's not a true freshman, but if you don't have to lean on him more than absolutely necessary and just take what he gives you, if you can Russell Wilson early Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl your way into title contention, where you're leaning on the Legion of Boom and Russ is more a passenger to the running game and the defense than he was the catalyst of that offense at the time, then I agree with you. I think that is best case scenario for Tennessee, and I think that's how you should want it to be as you ease Nico into being whatever he will end up becoming, whether he's a top draft pick or just a great college football quarterback or whatever the future holds for this guy. For right now, he's 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He could have played better against NC State. It's better competition than he saw in week 1. And of course, Kent State is not going to provide any kind of like outright threat, but we're not that. Who's after Kent State for Tennessee? Is that the Oklahoma game?
At Oklahoma.
And that's where it gets real, right? Yep. And if you can go on the road, because your defense should theoretically travel, if you can go on the road and lean on that defense and eke out a win against Oklahoma without Nico having to do too much, but just picking his spots with it, then yes, I agree. Best case scenario.
Yeah, he did not light it up. I mean, if you look at the final 51-10, you would assume, Nico Iamaleava had himself a day. 16 of 23, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He did flash in the run game, averaged 8 yards per carry, 65 yards, and a 31-yard touchdown run. So he showed some of his athleticism there, but the first interception was just a bad throw by Nico.
Yeah.
Right? He sails his receiver. It's picked off. The second one, he's getting drilled in the backfield. Ball kind of flutters up, and it's a pick 6. Game's over at that point anyway. So I think it's a great thing that Nico did not have a great performance against NC State, and this team still was able to win by 41 points. To have something to build off of for Nico so it's not all sunshine and rainbows the way it was after week 1 is a really positive thing for this team, I think. Work on some of those things against Kent State, get him out of there. Maybe it's a UTC scenario where he doesn't play after halftime and get him ready to go into a hostile environment in Norman where he's going to duel it out with another former 5-star in Jackson Arnold.
He needs to make mistakes in order for them to put something on film and show him the mistakes that he's making, right?
Yeah. Like Hendon Hooker had a whole season to make those mistakes.
Yes.
Right? Hendon Hooker had the entire 2021 season when he's asked to come in for Joe Milton to make those mistakes. To his credit, he didn't really. Hooker was like allergic to throwing interceptions during his time at Tennessee. But still, he had a 7-5 season with a bowl loss to Purdue in the Music City Bowl to kind of get his feet under him. Nico just has these first couple of games, plus the bowl game last year, and there is something to the fact that he was on this team last year. He was playing in games selectively to preserve his red shirt, practicing, being developed by Josh Heupel and his staff all throughout the course of last season. But yes, absolutely, it is a positive thing that Nico did not have even close to what his best performance could look like, and this team still scored 51 and held NC State to 39 yards on the ground. And this Tennessee rushing attack, as long as that continues to be a strength and a threat behind what I think is the best offensive line they've had under Heupel so far, then the opportunities are going to be plentiful for Nico moving forward.
615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. The second hour is coming up next. We'll talk about college football playoff implications this weekend, and Coach Dave McGinnis will join us. Also, your opportunity to win 2 tickets to Jeffrey Simmons' charity event coming up when, Jackson?
Monday.
615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 11 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. On Thursday, the Buffalo Bills routed the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football 31-10. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa left the game and was ruled out with a concussion in the third quarter. It's the third diagnosed concussion of Tua's NFL career. Head coach Mike McDaniel said after the game that Tua was in good spirits. He said this morning the Dolphins will move forward with backup Skylar Thompson and will pursue a veteran quarterback while Tua is out. The Tennessee Titans host the New York Jets on Sunday. It's the home opener at Nissan Stadium. The League Company countdown to kickoff hits the air at 9 a.m. Titans countdown starts at 11, and kickoff is at noon with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew. The Tennessee Volunteers come back home. They host Kent State at Neyland Stadium. Kickoff at 6:45 tomorrow, while network coverage starts on the Zone at 4:45. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour is upon us. Coach Mack will be here in about 20 minutes from now. We'll preview the Jets and Titans game coming up on Sunday. Before we do that, let's take a look at this week 3 on the college football schedule, where there was, it sounds like a bit of drama. I didn't get to see the Arizona State, Texas State game. I don't know how much of that you watched, but it did end up being a close game, 31-28. I saw Northwestern State got drubbed by South Alabama. Is that Trent Dilfer's South Alabama?
UAB.
Okay. 87-10 was the final score there. Rare to see a college football team put up 87 points.
Oh, yeah. In my mind, I was like, why are you bringing up Northwestern State and South Alabama? But 87 is insane.
87-10 is insane.
They had 365 rush yards.
So you got ranked game tonight, or a game between two ranked opponents tonight between Arizona at K-State, number 20 going to number 14, and also UNLV Kansas is on the docket. But with college football implications, college football playoff implications, as we just got finished with a discussion about Tennessee, of course, the Arizona K-State game has the biggest college football playoff implications, with K-State just on the outside looking in of the top 12. But Alabama and Wisconsin, Alabama at Wisconsin, obviously more so for Alabama than Wisconsin. That is going to be an interesting game. Alabama is favored by 16 on the road. That, I don't know what it's going to look like at Camp Randall on Saturday afternoon, but I do think that line seems a bit big for a team going on the road in that spot. Not that Alabama can't win the game. Alabama should win the game. But I don't know. Something about, and I'm not going to pretend to know any kind of great detail about Wisconsin's football team right now, but 16 just seems like a big line.
It's a big line. I figure we'll learn a lot about Alabama. Essentially, is Alabama still Alabama in this game? Because the Alabama we all know, some love, some hate, go up to Wisconsin and dismiss the Badgers, right? And especially after a week where they struggle like they did against USF. Because what did Alabama do last year after struggling against USF? They bounced back and went on a tear pretty much for the rest of the season, got into the college football playoff.
You even had people like Josh Pate alleging that they pulled the quarterback situation that they did against USF to teach a lesson for the rest of the roster.
I mean, who's to say? We may never know, but Alabama was arguably the most improved team in college football from that performance against USF to the end of the season last year. It's not Nick Saban on the sideline. It's Kalen DeBoer. So how they respond, I won't call it a dud of a performance. They scored 21 late. They made it look like a blowout, but it was a 1-point game for a while in the second half against USF. That'll be interesting. We could learn something from that game. I'm not willing to really say heavy CFP implications on it, but we can learn something from LSU and South Carolina, because those are two teams that have been all over the place through the first 2 weeks of the season. And then also A&M and Florida, just how the quarterback snaps are distributed for Florida will be intriguing. But you sort of put that to the side in terms of CFP implications. I think it's got a chance to be a frisky weekend. Upset alert all around this weekend in college football.
No more so. Well, I don't. Go ahead. I don't.
No, what were you going to say?
I was going to say this LSU at South Carolina game.
Game day's there. I don't think that's the biggest upset alert. In fact, we put it to a poll. Which team is on the most upset alert this weekend? And LSU South Carolina is not on there. Because, look, I don't consider LSU going to South Carolina after the Gamecocks drubbed Kentucky on the road and losing in front of an electric Williams-Brice Stadium. I'm not going to consider that a massive upset. I also didn't really think that highly of LSU coming into the season. They have a better roster. They are a more talented team, unquestionably, than South Carolina. But after the first 2 weeks, I'm not going to sit here and be shocked if LSU does not find a way to win that game. But I look to Oklahoma, who was sluggish against Houston. Not a very good Houston team. They're rebuilding. Willie Fritz, great head coach, will probably do good things there, but they're 0-2. And Oklahoma needed a late safety to go up by more than a field goal in that game and beat Houston 16-12 at home. They're dealing with some injuries right now, but that Tennessee game is coming down the line. And for Oklahoma, it's not just about Tennessee coming to town. It's about Josh Heupel coming to town, the quarterback that won them their last national championship and has not been to Norman since he was fired by Bob Stoops on that coaching staff. You know, trap game gets thrown around a lot in college football, but Tulane's a team that gave Kansas State everything they wanted last week, and K-State got out of there with a win. I'm looking at Tulane at Oklahoma and thinking this might be a game in the fourth quarter. If you want to talk about upset alert this weekend, games with CFP implications. Tulane also one of those group of 5 teams that a win at Oklahoma probably would still need to win your conference, but a group of 5 team wanting to run the table, win their conference, and get in the playoff, Tulane, big candidate for that this year. So I've got my eye on that game for sure.
And here I thought you were going to pick Butch Jones to upset Michigan this weekend.
Not quite. Arkansas State is at Michigan. But I am also looking to Oregon, who visits Oregon State. Big rivalry, obviously. Former Pac-12 matchup. Oregon's out of Idaho teams to play, right? They struggled against Idaho in week 1, 10-point win, not very inspiring. And they had to win a shootout against Boise State last week. They finally get out of playing the Idaho teams, but they play an Oregon State team that has an Idaho transfer as their starting quarterback on the road. Oregon is going to need to give people a reason to continue talking about them as national championship contenders and find a way to win that rivalry game on the road. And then a lot of people in the chat are talking about Memphis against FSU. Pretty confident that Memphis are going to beat FSU and send them to 0-3. FSU toast in the college football playoff discussion in my mind. Memphis, though, is a very trendy pick out of the group of 5 to get to the college football playoff. Big opportunity for them to go down and beat their former head coach, Mike Norvell, in Tallahassee. And then you mentioned the game tonight, Arizona at K-State. If you don't know, familiarize yourself with Tatora McMillan, the wide receiver for Arizona. T-Mac, he's being talked about as a first-round pick next year. He went crazy in the opener against New Mexico, 10 catches for 304 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was basically eliminated from the game against Northern Arizona last week. Brad Hopkins was on the call for ESPN+, so we were talking to him when we were exchanging, coming into the studio, and Ramon, Kayla, and Will were leaving. But T-Mac is a name to keep an eye on all season. Dynamic wide receiver for Arizona. But upset alert is the theme of the weekend for me in college football.
Well, because it's like on paper, it's not the best week 3 in the sport, but I think that's where you get the most amount of variance.
Yeah, the craziest things seem to happen on the weeks where people say, not that great of a weekend in college football.
Florida State is a 7-point favorite at home against Memphis. Now, I'm not saying that Florida State is going to try and fire Mike Norvell if he loses to his former team, but what is the vibe going to be if they lose, if they go down 0-3, and 2 of these losses are to Boston College at home and Memphis at home? What are the vibes going to be around Mike Norvell? Because we thought this was a coach that, remind me the way that their 2022 season finished, because it seemed like they had a difficult time, but he ended up galvanizing them.
Talking about Florida State?
Florida State. They struggled in 2022, if I remember correctly, rebounded in 2023, obviously with a great team, pushed for the college football playoff, came up short after the Jordan Travis injury or were left out. after the Jordan Travis injury, but I feel like it looked like the wheels were coming off at Florida State a little bit, except Norvell had done a good job to keep that team together.
Well, they were a 10-win team in 2022. They had a 3-game stretch. They had a 3-game losing streak in the midst of the season. So, yeah, they started 4-0, lost 3 in a row, and look, pulling up their schedule now. Wake Forest, NC State, Clemson. So they were reeling a bit, and then they ripped off a win streak at the end there. Strength of schedule lightened up, beat Oklahoma in the Cheez-It Bowl in a shootout, and then went undefeated in 2023. So, yes, but I wonder what the discussion becomes on Mike Norvell, because Florida State's one of those teams that has tried to address their roster in the portal more so than most other high-profile college football teams. They got it right in 2023. They seem to have got it wrong in 2024, and thus creates a conversation about the transfer portal. How sustainable is it to try and build a team through it? Now, they recruit at Florida State, but a lot of their key playmakers have come through the transfer portal. So an interesting experiment in that regard. But, yeah, if they go 0-3 and lose to Memphis, season's gone. I mean, season's lost. Sure, maybe Mike Norvell can galvanize them, but the DJU experiment will be considered to be a failure if they lose to Memphis, if it's not already.
You know how you were complaining during after the Boston College game about the war chant on third down?
Yeah, it's a little excessive.
Apparently, it's a recording. Florida State fans are pissed because it's not even them doing it now. They're just playing a recording in the stadium on every third down.
Woof.
That has people upset about it.
I wonder what that stadium looks like against Memphis. I feel like Florida State fans are quick to empty out down there. I don't know. I feel like oftentimes when things aren't going great for Florida State, that's a stadium that's got a lot of empty seats when things aren't going too hot.
I haven't necessarily noticed that, but
kind of a half-baked theory.
Perhaps you're right.
And you mentioned Boston College. They are at Missouri this weekend. You want to talk about upset alert? We put it to a poll. Which team should be on the highest upset alert Saturday? It's Bama at Wisconsin, Oregon at Oregon State, Oklahoma as they host Tulane, or Missouri as they host Boston College. First big test for Missouri this year. Bill O'Brien coming down to Columbia, and that we could learn something about the Tigers in that game, something we have not been able to do in the first 2 weeks. It's an 11:45 a.m. kickoff on SEC Network. Early game, too.
Coming up next, we'll preview Titans and Jets with Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. Find out how this team can right its wrongs and get right against an AFC opponent. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. While we break down everything about the teams here on 104.5 The Zone, let's take some time to break down one of the best teams in Middle Tennessee. That's the Two Rivers Ford team. You know that Two Rivers is a really rare kind of Ford dealership because they're one of the largest volume Ford dealers in the entire country, which makes you think that they might be some kind of corporate dealership, but they are not. Two Rivers Ford is a locally owned dealership that's been around for over 4 decades. And the Two Rivers Ford team does business the right way. They have a non-commissioned sales team, so there's never any pressure on you. They sell below MSRP on all their new non-specialty Fords, and they treat every customer like family. And you know, a great team always knows how to adapt, which is why Two Rivers Ford is known for offering every kind of shopping experience available. You can shop on the lot with their non-commissioned sales team. You can do the whole transaction online and get your vehicle delivered the way that I did. You can do a FaceTime walk around if you want. Two Rivers Ford puts you in the driver's seat. There's a reason that a local dealership in Middle Tennessee has risen to become one of the top Ford dealers in the nation. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. That music puts a smile on your face. It means it's Friday. It means it's Coach Mac's Visit with Us, presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. They make Mac Talk possible. They make all kinds of great stuff with Coach Mac possible. And he joins us now on the show. What's happening, Mac?
Hey, Buck. Well, I was standing out on the practice field, but as soon as I heard Jackson's voice, it started raining, so he's a thundercloud. Know that.
That sounds about right. That's in keeping with the theme of the show. I've got two thunderclouds just hovering over me in this studio at any given point between the two of them, Mac.
So I had to walk inside the bubble here so that we could talk ball.
Well, I appreciate you doing so. So let's talk some ball, because now we have one result in hand and now an upcoming opponent to discuss, having seen them play on Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. Mac, you've been asked, a million questions about the Bears game, but it is something to the idea of not just how well the defense played in Chicago, but generating turnovers has been a difficulty for them in the last year, just about. 14 takeaways total was the second worst in the NFL, and Denard Wilson and Brian Callahan trying to find ways to use their scheme to generate more turnovers and put the offense in advantageous positions. That's not something you can bank on year over year, right? Turnovers. You just have to make sure the guys are in the right spot to make a play when the opportunity becomes available. But what are you seeing from this defense that's going to help them in that regard?
Well, I mean, this is a very aggressive defense. Look, I mean, this is entirely different. So what happened last year doesn't matter for this defense, and to them, this is a very vertically charging defense. It's a very aggressive defense, and they had about 4 ricochet rabbits bounced up in the air. They had a chance to get. When you present a chance to get them, you got to get them. That has never been a problem. All the defenses that Denard has been involved with, I've been involved with, several years of them with. That will, as long as they keep playing that type of aggressive defense, those will come along. What has to happen, though, is you've got to play within the framework of the defense and within the framework of what your techniques are and within the framework of what the call challenges, rather than just trying to go, free ball it and go try to get turnovers all the time. That's when you get into trouble. You create turnovers by playing good, aggressive, solid defense. They will do that.
Well, and we saw that with some of the simulated pressure looks that Wilson was using against the Bears. Hell, I mean, if Tavondre Sweat is just a couple of steps faster, Ernest Jones may have gotten him an interception on one of those plays in the red zone. With this defense in particular, Mac, the talent that they've acquired, right? Especially looking at the linebackers, and I know Givens is still going to have a role on this team, but with Ernest Jones, as you continue to see his role expand, how much better can he make this defense from that off-ball linebacker spot?
Well, you got a 3-year starter in the National Football League that's played in and won a Super Bowl. So I mean, you can't. How many times have I said, and it's true, so do our listeners. They're sophisticated fans. You can't manufacture that type of experience. And so that was a really good get at that point, going into the last week of training camp. Yes, and he absolutely can, because now, I mean, you've got two guys standing next to each other when they're in there together. They've played a lot of football. And, one a first-round pick, one a third-round pick. Of course, once you get into the league, then you've got to establish who you are in this league rather than who you were coming into it. But he's a proven player. He's a good player.
Coach Dave McGinnis here with us on 104.5 The Zone. His visit's presented by the South's most trusted Ford dealer, Two Rivers Ford. Jamal Adams is saying that he's going to be available. We'll see what determination the team ultimately makes, Mac. But what's your biggest question about his deployment within this defense?
I've really got no question about his deployment, because I know, I mean, we've talked about this before when I was with this group, and we've brought a guy similar to him into that same situation, and the way that you're deployed there, you're going to see a lot of different personnel in this defense. We saw a lot of different personnel in the defense in the first game. He'll have a role, and the more experienced players that you can roll into roles now, I mean, defenses have to match what the offenses have personnel wise, and also structurally. You got to match structurally what the offense is putting out there on the field in front of you. He'll have a place in this defense. I can guarantee that.
Coach Mack, you go from facing a quarterback playing his first ever NFL game to a quarterback who will be playing his 233rd ever regular season game.
A little different.
Little bit different. What is the biggest difference, though, in game planning and the discussions that happen throughout the course of the week against a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams and what you can throw at him versus a veteran like Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, it's a pretty wide spectrum. I mean, against all the veteran, this quarterback in particular, all the veteran quarterbacks that I've called defenses against, the first thing you got to do, you got to be very sound in what you're doing, and it's not so much now about showing him different looks before the snap, because he's going to be able to diagnose that pretty quickly. I mean, that's all the years you talk about manufacturer experience. You can't show him anything that he hasn't seen. The issue is being able to be structurally sound, fundamentally sound, being able to do something maybe after the snap, but then being able to react, because he's going to find answers. You just need to, and you need to have the answer with what you are. When you're bringing pressure, you need to understand what his answers will be, and then go tackle that answer. That's going to be huge. But you're not going to fool this guy. I mean, a big mistake that you make against veteran quarterbacks is try to move around and fool them early on and get yourself out of position, and then they really take advantage of that. So play real sound within the structure of what you're doing, and understand the looks. The look that you show him, understand the weak spot of it and where he's going to go, and then be able to defend and tackle that if he chooses to throw it there. That's what you have to be able to do against this kind of guy. A younger guy, like they played last week, you can move around all you want, bogey up and down, in and out, because you're going to confuse him before and after the snap. You're never going to confuse this guy before the snap.
Sacks are an easy stat for fans and media to wrap their head around, Mac. But against a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who, again, like you said, you're not going to fool. You know he's going to be getting the ball out quickly. How important is just the general disruption, even if it doesn't show up in the box scores, the amount of pressures that this defense, in particular on the interior, is going to try to get against him?
You hit it right on the nose, Buck. Interior pressure, center guard pressure against this guy, because I mean, when he first came into the league, center guard pressure, he could jackrabbit out of there. He's one of the most athletic runners as a quarterback in the league, other than having just a complete gun on his shoulder. Now he's not that, but he's got all the wisdom, but he's not as mobile as he used to be. So interior pressure is what you want. And again, with interior pressure against veteran quarterbacks can manipulate a pocket. If you're just bringing edge pressure and you've got that middle blocked, then they can move up into that thing and slide left, slide right from guard to guard, and be able to find a window to throw in, because they can identify where they're throwing it pretty quick. You get center guard pressure in their face and they can't jackrabbit out the sides, then you've got something going on. But again, it has to be tied in with the coverage, because the ball is going to come out. He's not going to hold it. The ball, he's going to go 1-2 throw. So you've got to be able to spot tackling against a guy like this is huge. And also getting pressure, you've got to be very, very disciplined on the hard count, because this guy is a magician with the hard count, and also more than a magician with the hard count getting you to jump. He's a magician by taking advantage of it for some really opportune plays. His whole career, he's been that. So that has to be in your mind too, defensively.
I was just going to follow up with that, Mac. Like he is the best at taking advantage of the free play that way. Yes.
Well, he's absolutely the best at starting it first, because his hard count. I mean, I've worked his hard count before with my signal callers and people. I mean, if you're not dialed into it, it can be distracting, and it can pull you off. So, but you're right. After it, he is the master at it, and they practice it. They have practiced it ever since he started being a quarterback. He has practiced it, and more times than not. I mean, the numbers are ridiculous when you dig into it as to how many he's caused and to how many positive plays he's produced off of that.
It's the home opener at Nissan Stadium. The Titans hosting the New York Jets. Coach Dave McGinnis and the rest of the Titans radio crew on the call. Coverage starting on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. with the kickoff at noon right here on 104.5 The Zone.
Coach, flipping to the Jets defense, there's no question it's one of the more talented units across the NFL, but struggled on the back end of last year and did not get off to a good start, allowed over 400 yards of offense against the Niners in week 1. Is there an area where the Jets struggled last week that maybe surprised you the most defensively?
It surprised me they couldn't stop the run, because they've been great at that. Roberts' defenses they've been really good at that. I mean, at stopping the run, and with either 7 or 8 people in the box, and that surprised me. surprised me quite a bit. And kudos to the 49ers. They just stayed with it. They stayed with it. They blocked them. That surprised me because this is a good defensive front. It really is. Quinnen Williams is one of the best. They'll move him around some, but most of the time he's going to be on the left side. But to me, that was the biggest surprise to me as to how it doesn't surprise me that the 49ers were able to break some runs, but the continuous pounding and the continuous 2nd and 2s and 2nd and 3s that they were able to get and finally break through the wall and get the explosive runs, that surprised me. That really did, Lucas. That I'm watching that going, this doesn't really look like a defense they normally have there.
Yeah, eight straight scoring drives on Monday Night Football is obviously not something that they are going to aspire to as a defense. Kind of flipping back to the offense for the Jets, Matt, Garrett Wilson and the problems that he presents. We're seeing really the first sample size of Aaron Rodgers working with Garrett Wilson. And I know that Allen Lazard was the receiver that he targeted most. That's the player that he's most familiar with from their time together in Green Bay. But what distinguishes Wilson as a wide receiver among, a lot of talented wide receivers right now in the league?
Really good route runner, and he's got no tails in his route, which means that he's able to drop his weight and shift from going really, really fast forward to shifting and dropping his weight. There's very little tails in it, and this guy is a guy that the quarterback really likes. He really likes him, and so he's a guy that you've got to be able. The ball's going to him. If he's singled, ball's going to him, a lot. And so that's the guy. I know Lazard came with him from Green Bay, but I would think it's Garrett Wilson, then it's Lazard, then it's Mike Williams, and the other guy that you cannot sleep on in this offense, both run and pass, is Breece Hall. Surprised me that Breece Hall wasn't more productive than he was in the first ball game, but to me, it starts with the quarterback, then it goes to Wilson, then it goes to Breece Hall.
Snead didn't really travel with any one receiver against the Bears, Mac, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong in that assessment, but just based on what I was able to see, would you expect that to be different against the Jets?
I don't know. I mean, I get to watch practice every day, so I don't know. We'll find out really quick. But you know what? This secondary, let me just say about the way they played. People were worried about them not having or worried about their communication as not having played together. You got some veterans back there. I mean, that was a really good display by this secondary. So that's why they were brought in here, for challenges like this. So we'll find out.
Coach, Brian Callahan talked a lot about the week 1 to week 2 jump. Feels like we talk about that at every level of football. After the first week of the season, the improvements that can be made in that first transition to week 2. What did you see after watching the Bears game in terms of the most correctable mistakes the Titans made in Chicago that you're going to look to see how it's addressed Sunday against the Jets?
Well, you got to clean up the special teams. You got to clean up the coverage. You got to clean up your punt protection. You got to clean up your pass protection. I mean, you're looking right straight at that. And then Buck brought it up when we first started. As I say, you're always talking about generating turnovers. You need to do some of that. But the glaring things, I mean, you can't turn the ball over. You cannot turn the ball over, especially in situations where it's not called for, because that's a death knell in the National Football League. And then they're going to continue to start cleaning up and the pass protection. I think that Bill Callahan has been concentrated on that all week.
And then for Brian Callahan himself, it was his first regular season game as a head coach, as the play caller on an NFL sideline last week. Going back for you in your first game coaching the Arizona Cardinals as the head coach, how much more comfortable did you feel in week 2 versus week 1 in that year?
Yeah, a lot. And of course, I'd been in the league 15 years, before I got my head job, so I thought that I felt pretty comfortable with what the flow and the function of the game was. Being a head coach is different. I mean, I had a defensive coordinator, but I also did quite a bit of that. So yeah, you do. And every chance you get at it is a learning experience. And I thought Brian Callahan was very self-revealing, saying, here's some things I want to do better next time. Here's the thing. You self-scout yourself all the time. As a head coach, you not only self-scout what the other coaches are doing, you self-scout yourself a lot, because at the end of the day, it is on you. So yeah, I expect that he's done a lot of that self-introspection too, and he's a very bright guy. So, anytime you're in this league, every week is a learning experience, and I'm sure he's learned something from that first time.
Well, and to your point about introspection, we talked to Will on Wednesday about the idea of, used to be, he said in his career, he might let some of these results, in particular the pick six, kind of sit with him longer than need be, right? Let it sit with him for a day or a week even, and kind of stewing on it. He says now that he's found the proper ways to compartmentalize, and I've talked to you before, Mac, about how you almost have to be a part-time psychologist as a head coach, working through a lot of the mental stuff that at least fans probably don't think about that often with your players. But just the getting guys to a point where it's that easy to just flush the result of a bad game and turn their attention to the next opponent. That's not something that guys always come to the NFL with the ability to do, right?
Well, what I used to tell my guys, in 31 seasons, whether I was an assistant coach or coordinator or a head coach, if they did have a bad day, I would say, look, the first thing you got to do is learn from it. The second thing you got to do, let it bother you, but don't ever let it bury you. There's a difference. Let it bother you, learn from it, don't let it bury you, because the next game comes around very, very quick. Learning from it, being bothered by it, so you don't want it to happen again, but don't let it bury you. Don't let it bury you mentally. Don't let it bury you psychologically, because the next challenge is coming really, really quick. And I kept that with my guys for all the 31 years that I coached in this league, and it holds true pretty much with everybody.
Well, and certainly they're going to have to be prepared for a variety of factors with the Jets coming to town, and also some weather expected at Nissan Stadium on Sunday, which I know that they have been making the necessary process. All the hoses out there, they're soaking the footballs for the quarterbacks out there to try and get them used to the conditions that they may face on Sunday. And, of course, Mike and Mac and Rhett and everybody else with Titans Radio will be in the booth, or Ramon on the sideline, giving you great coverage from Titans Radio's standpoint. Kickoff at noon. You can hear it right here on 104.5 The Zone. Mac, appreciate you as always, and I'll see you in the booth, bud.
All right, Buck. Yeah, they're leaving no stone unturned, so let's go win a ball game. See you guys.
See you, Mac. That is Coach Dave McGinnis. His visits presented by Two Rivers Ford. If only it was so simple. Let's go win a ball game. And that's exactly what they're going to have to do. That's what it boils down to. No matter how it looks or how they go about doing it, or whether they're able to correct the mistakes that bogged them down last time, or if new mistakes come up in this game that they'll have to work their way through in real time. They need, I'm not going to say week 2 against the Jets is a must-win game, but at a certain point, it's not just about the divisional games, right? The entire AFC South plays what 2 divisions this year? The NFC North and the AFC East. And if you think that this team should be pushing for postseason contention, then they have to find a way to get some of these tiebreakers over the Colts, the Jags, the Texans in ways that will put them in position to capitalize on whatever they might do once they really hit their AFC South divisional game stretch.
Imagine it sure feels like a must-win game for Jets fans.
It's for sure a must-win game for Jets fans.
Because the meltdown that the Jets will come home to if they start the season 0-2 with the loss to the Titans.
Delightful.
Feels like high stakes for week 2.
Sure, but that's what it is in the NFL.
Yep.
We've talked about the percentages of teams that start 0-2 in the NFL season, and how damning an 0-2 start in an 18-week regular season schedule can actually be. There's only been a handful of teams that have ever made the postseason down 0-2 at the start of the year, and you have to go back to like the 2001 New England Patriots to see teams that have actually done it with credible success with a young Tom Brady. 131 teams have gone 0-2, according to the National Football Post, and there are only 13 teams have rallied to make the playoffs. Cincinnati did it in 2022 most recently, and in 2023, they tried to avoid the same exact thing, as a matter of fact, and ultimately did miss the playoffs after an 0-2 start.
There is some news that has just been broken by A to Z Sports in the SEC about a certain program that has had a certain legal issue south of the Tennessee border.
Find out next. All right, we got Friday Fire, and I've got 2 tickets to Jeff Simmons' charity dinner at Hall's Steak and Chop House coming up this Monday. If you haven't been to Hall's, it's excellent. Jeff is doing great work in the community to help support children who are in need. So if you want to be able to participate in that, we've got 2 tickets for you. All you have to do is give us your Friday Fire. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to win the tickets, you just give us your moment of positivity this week. Sports, work, personal life, whatever you've got. Give us some feel good. We'll give you some feel good by sending you to Jeff Simmons' charity dinner at Hall's Steak and Chop House this coming Monday to benefit children in need. But first, we have breaking college football news.
A to Z Sports reporting about 10 minutes ago that another Georgia Bulldog football player has been arrested for reckless driving. Cornerback Daniel Harris arrested Thursday by Athens Clarke County Police. 2 days before Georgia plays Kentucky in Lexington tomorrow, he was booked at 10:40 p.m. Eastern Time, according to the public records, and was charged with affixing materials that reduce the visibility of windows/windshield, no proof of insurance, operating an unregistered vehicle with a current license plate of revalidation decal, use of safety belts, and reckless driving. He was released on bonds, and that is now 25 Georgia football players arrested for reckless driving since after the fatal crash that happened January 2023 that involved the death of a Georgia football player and a Georgia football staffer.
So it's being reported by Kelsey Kramer at A to Z Sports. And if you didn't know, A to Z recently just launched a bunch of college football coverage to go along with their NFL coverage. Of course, I work at A to Z Sports as well. So good reporting by Kelsey here. 25 since the death. And
less than 2 years.
Those are the ones that we know about, okay? Because I have to imagine, and I don't know this. Can I get the reckless speculation sound at your convenience, Jackson? I'm going to assume at some point a cop in Athens let one of them off the hook and just said, go home, son. You know, like just 1 or 2 that we don't know about out of 25 that we do. Kirby has dismissed football players for this recently. He has done the thing that no other college football coach, no major college football coach has done, which is outright dismiss players for these kind of incidents, and it still has not curbed the issue. I don't know what he does, because a part of me, you know, ultimately the responsibility is laid at the feet of the coach because they are the CEO of the program. They are responsible for everything that happens within the program. But I mean, it's not like they're saying, "Hey boys, make sure you don't wear your seatbelt when you're driving home from practice today. Make sure you go 25 over, not just 10." Like it's not like they're getting coached up on reckless driving and Kirby's sending them out into the world to tear up the streets of Athens. This is so bizarre. So bizarre.
So bizarre.
And they'll keep rolling as far as I can tell, because the players that Georgia dismisses will get picked up elsewhere and, you know, maybe go on to have careers. And maybe this is the kind of lesson that a lot of these guys need to learn. You have a great opportunity to win a national championship, compete for a national championship at one of the best programs in college football right now until you do something dumb and then you get bounced. But like, I can't absolve Kirby of blame here.
I don't know what to do.
But like, I don't know. I can't give him any guidance on what the hell he should be doing. This is so bizarre.
Crazy.
615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to win some Jeff Simmons charity dinner tickets this Monday at Hall's Steak and Chop House, you give us your Friday Fire. Let's do it. That's right. What made you smile? What made you happy? What made you laugh this week? 615-737-1045. Give us your Friday Fire. Okay. So, Wednesday. Well, this has been invoked before. Some of you have brought it up in the live stream chat. My Friday Fire is Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp on Wednesday afternoon. Middle of the day. Good for Shannon Sharp. His phone, he's saying that he's hacked. He went back later on his show, Nightcap, with Ocho Cinco and said that he was lying about being hacked. Shocking to nobody. But he went live on Instagram whilst in the act of some afternoon delight with a woman who is being only described as Michelle right now. Now, you don't see anything, mercifully. So for you sickos, don't go out there seeking any Shannon Sharp OnlyFans type content, okay? But you hear him grunting and growling in the background, and it is objectively hilarious. But it's only funnier. It's only made funnier by the fact that they broke it down on Nightcap between Shannon and Ocho Cinco, and it's one of the funniest reactions I've heard to anything like this before.
To bungee jump in like that and be able to say some of the things that you were saying, is it?
What was I saying, Ocho? What was I saying? I ain't hear.
You was like you gonna take this. Now, I'm just saying I ain't never heard you talk like that. I ain't never heard you talk like that. Now, what we do got to work on is ain't nothing wrong with your hips, but we got to work on your cardio because you was breathing heavy. You shouldn't be breathing that. You shouldn't be breathing that heavy. So we got to work on your cardio. So
Ocho,
when you lift weights, we got to get you on the car. Hit the treadmill first.
Ocho,
do the step,
real talk, though, Ocho, your boy, hey.
Ocho Cinco giving Shannon Sharp coaching tips on how to have better sex is hilarious. That is my Friday Fire this week.
Was it on purpose?
Yes.
Had to be.
Well, quickly, reckless speculation, if you would, so that I can, yeah. Absolutely.
Had to be.
Absolutely. He's in the middle of it. How the hell does your phone go live on Instagram face down if you're in the middle of it?
Doesn't add up.
You have to confirm you want to go live.
Yeah, does not add up, Shannon Sharp. Does not add up, but it's working. So,
listen, if it's a publicity stunt and
people are talking about it,
your stuff's not getting hacked like the whole Levis situation, this is ideal. This is ideal for Shannon Sharp because you can't comment on what he looks like physically in the act because you don't see it. You can't comment on size or anything like that or lack thereof, and if that is in fact the case for Shannon Sharp, and you only get the publicity being able to talk about it afterwards and going viral for it. Hilarious.
My Friday Fire is Kumar Rocker, the former Vanderbilt star pitcher who obviously was picked by the New York Mets, 10th overall in the first round of the 2021 MLB draft. And, we remember what happened. The Mets ended up not making him an offer after they reviewed his medical information. And it's been a long road since then. Rocker went down to the Frontier League, playing for the Tri-City Valley Cats. He came back around to the MLB draft in 2022, was selected by the Texas Rangers, spent time with the Arizona Fall League, spent time playing high A ball, and last night, Kumar Rocker made his MLB debut in Seattle against the Mariners, and his dad, Tracy Rocker, Titans defensive line coach, was there with his wife, Tracy Rocker. Ian Rappaport had a tweet about this yesterday. Left at the end of Titans practice yesterday, flew to Seattle to watch his son's debut, and then came back. He will be back for practice today, according to Rappaport. And Kumar Rocker, slightly shaky to start, but ended up having a phenomenal MLB debut. He struck out 7. He gave up 3 hits after 74 pitches through 4 innings. So shout out Kumar Rocker. It's been a long road, but we all remember the talent from that run that he had with Vanderbilt in 2019, and really, really cool to see it pay off.
Quickly, Jackson.
Connor Stallion's the gift that keeps on giving. Did you guys hear he was named interim head coach of the high school football team he was coaching?
I did, and I heard how bad he lost in his debut.
That is my Friday Fire. Connor Stallion's losing 60-0 as a head coach at Detroit Mumford High School.
Didn't have the signs, did you, bud?
Sweet justice comes for us all. 615-737-1045. Give us your Friday Fire. We'll give you 2 tickets. The Jeff Simmons charity event coming up this Monday at Hall's Steak and Chop House. Let's go to Jordan up first.
Hey, guys. Earlier this week on Tuesday, John Bon Jovi helped talk a woman off the pedestrian bridge in Nashville, so it got her to safety. So kudos to Bon Jovi for saving someone's life.
It's insane.
Incredible submission. Great story.
So if you haven't seen the video, John Bon Jovi is in the middle of shooting a music video on the...
it was a promotional photo shoot or something.
Either way, he's out there shooting something on the pedestrian bridge in downtown Nashville. And there's, foot traffic walking by throughout the course of this. And you see this woman on the opposite side of the rail, holding the rail from the outside she appears to be contemplating jumping, okay? And of all people to stop, because there's plenty of people that just keep walking by her, of all people to stop and make sure that this woman is safe, get her on the other side of the fence, John Bon Jovi, just all the kudos in the world to him. He's sitting there embracing her afterwards. I don't know what was said between the two of them, but it's just an incredible moment. It's a really good submission, Jordan. I think I told you guys this via text. The day that I got hired by A to Z, we were shooting a live stream out on the pedestrian bridge, and Zach Bingham and myself had to. I believe he was an unhoused gentleman. He kept trying to go over the ledge, and like he seemed a bit delirious or just out of it. We had to physically walk him down the bridge to the stairs down by Dick's Last Resort, which is now Barstool. I'm not sure how. I mean, it's just scary. It's just scary stuff. So good on Bon Jovi for being a good person in a spot where plenty of people just seem content to ignore her.
Hard one to beat. John Bon Jovi literally saving a life this week on Pedestrian Bridge.
We'll see if RJ's got anything. How about, let's go to RJ up next.
Morning, fellas.
Hey, bub.
I just climbed out of my hole from the loss, but I did find some positives from the Titans' loss. The block punt, he didn't get hurt blocking the punt. He came back and punted again. He looked healthy. So that was a good thing because they say, after an injury, you want to take a hit, see how it feels. He got hit, and he got back up. I would put my money, if I had to bet gun to my head, I would put my money that Will Levis ain't going to fall down the ground and flip up a pick six again. If I had to bet, I'm not going to bet, but if I had to bet, I bet that wouldn't happen again. So that's a positive moving forward. That probably won't happen again. It was an NFC opponent. It was an NFC. That one. Yeah, I don't know, but hopefully it was an NFC opponent. It was a road game, so that's a positive. At least it wasn't. We're in a weak division, AFC South. Houston is the only team in our division that won, and we played them twice. And our coach was honest. He told us what it was. He didn't beat around the bush. He didn't give us no coach speak.
I appreciate you, RJ, but that's 60 seconds on the clock. We got to keep it moving here. So the positives of it, taking a couple of days to compartmentalize, decompress, and try and put some positive spin on a poor result in Chicago. Jordan will get the Friday fire.
Yeah, you can't beat literally a life being saved.
Yeah, I agree. So congratulations to Jordan. Jackson will get in touch with you here shortly, and you'll get the opportunity to hang out with Jeff Simmons at his charity event this Monday at Hall's Steak and Chop House. Coming up next, 3 keys to beating the Jets. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
12:03, good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Thursday, the Bills routed the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football 31-10. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa left the game and was ruled out with a concussion in the third quarter. It's the third diagnosed concussion of his NFL career. The Tennessee Titans host the New York Jets on Sunday. It's the home opener at Nissan Stadium. The league company countdown to kickoff hits the air at 9 a.m. Titans countdown starts at 11, and kickoff is at noon with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew. The Tennessee Vols come back home. They host Kent State at Neyland Stadium. Kickoff is at 6:45 tomorrow. Vol Network coverage starts on The Zone at 4:45. In other college football news, another Georgia Bulldogs football player has been cited for reckless driving as sophomore cornerback Daniel Harris was arrested on Thursday night as Georgia prepares to travel to Kentucky on Saturday. It is the 25th Georgia player to have a reckless driving citation since the fatal crash in January 2023, that saw a Georgia football player and Georgia staffer pass away. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right, final hour is upon us, and I've got your 3 keys to the Titans beating the Jets this coming Sunday at Nissan Stadium. Thanks for hanging out here with us for one more. 615-737-1045, the number. Jump in there if you'd like. So, what most went wrong against the Bears, where the Titans had a 17-0 lead, ended up losing 24-17, 24 unanswered points by not an offense, but by field goals, a blocked punt returned for a touchdown, and a pick 6 by Levis with about 7 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. Some of those are just one-off bad decisions. Some of those are things that need to be corrected. We've heard from all 3 coordinators. Well, we've heard from 2 of the 3 coordinators. You'll hear from Denard Wilson here in just a second. But based on, well, I guess let's start here. Week 1 is where you start to determine the identity of a football team. Do we have an inkling of what the identity of this football team might actually be? Because from my standpoint, I don't know. I'm not going to call it a curse that Titans fans can't escape from, but it does seem that anytime this team, this franchise tries to become anything but defense and running the football, things go catastrophically wrong. Because what I saw this past Sunday in Chicago was a team that was adept at running the football and playing really good defense. And I don't necessarily think that's what Titans fans thought they were in store for when Brian Callahan got hired as the head coach. But from an identity standpoint, there's no question that Cincinnati, the Bengals with Joe Mixon and Brian Callahan as the OC there, emphasized running the football efficiently. And of course, defense is going to matter when you're trying to disrupt, when you're trying to create turnovers, when you're trying to create short fields, and of course, keep yourself in the game throughout. Denard Wilson doing a great job with his unit on that front. With what we saw them do well and what we saw the Jets do poorly, I'm going to assume that the Titans are not going to have the same kind of success running the football against the Jets defense that the Niners did on Monday Night Football, where they pull out, is it Jordan Mason?
Jordan Mason.
They pull out Gallatin, Tennessee's own Jordan Mason, former Georgia Tech running back, getting more carries in a single Monday Night Football game than he has had at any point in his collegiate career, which was kind of crazy to watch. And then you have the situation with the Titans on defense, where they were doing a lot of great things, but they were doing it against a rookie quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers is a much more difficult kind of test, even at an advanced age. So let's start first and foremost with the first key to success, and that is the interior pressure. Let me hear from Denard Wilson on Tavondre Sweat, who had a great coming out party against the Bears with Jeff Simmons as his partner.
Well, he's on the right trajectory. You know, he's the player we envisioned when we drafted him. He keeps getting better and better. And, you know, that was his first live game. And you know how it is. You go out there the first time, and you have some success, it gives you success or confidence in your mind to go out and play even better. In his mind, he wants to be one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League. I think he told you guys that when we drafted him. And that's what we want him to be. And the more he goes out there and play, he's getting in better and better shape. He's happy about some of the losing weight and everything else. And, as the season go on, I just see the guy, everything's going to come to fruition on what he is and what we expect him to be.
How happy are you that he was able to give you, I think it was 38 snaps on Sunday?
Oh, I was great. It was great. Man, honestly, he can play more snaps. The game, the way the game played out, we wanted to keep guys fresh for the end, so as it came down to crunch time, they were ready to go. But he could play more snaps. But the good thing about our D-line, the rotation was extremely well. Tracy Rocker, Ben Bloom did a great job of making sure guys were in and out, keeping them fresh, keeping them in spots that we really needed them. And, we expect to do that going forward.
So Denard Wilson not only saying that, Tavondre Sweat living up to the billing, but he can play more snaps. 38 snaps in the game against the Bears this past Sunday. Jets, not an overwhelmingly great offensive line unit, or at least they didn't acquit themselves as that in week 1 against the Niners. Interior pressure from Tavondre Sweat, and Jeff Simmons, key number 1 to the game.
We're probably going to rinse and repeat that every week, by the way.
Yeah. Well, it's the best thing that what do they do better than that now?
After 1 week, there's nothing you can put above that at the moment.
That's because that's what I'm like. The Jets are a better football team. We agree. Just if for no other reason than the quarterback is established, proven, you're not, whatever he might be physically at this point in his career, he's still a better option at quarterback than the unknown that is Will Levis at this stage of his respective career. But the Titans and the Jets do one thing really, really well as parallels of one another, and that's interior pressure because of the way that they're built. You heard Ben Jones say that Quinnen Williams is just a bigger, badder Jeff. That is somebody who has had to block both Quinnen Williams and Jeff Simmons at various points in his practice or playing career. And he's saying, yeah, that guy's bigger, longer, maybe not faster, because Jeff is crazy. The fact that Jeff Simmons at his size can chase down running backs on screenplays and stuff like that. But they kind of mirror each other's best asset that way. Now, the Jets obviously have a couple of different pieces on defense that they think need to perform up to expectation. Titans defense across the board, I thought, played pretty high-level football against a Bears offense that hadn't really found itself just yet. But interior pressure, best thing that the Titans do, Tavondre Sweat and Jeff Simmons. Second, obviously, it's going to rain. Don't turn the football over. Turnovers, again, you can rinse and repeat literally these keys to success, but turning the football over is going to kill you. Killed the Bills, or rather killed the Dolphins last night against the Bills. Josh Allen didn't have to really do anything in that game. He made a couple of plays unto himself. He had a couple of Josh Allen moments where he's absolutely winging it to his wide receivers and making plays with his legs. But for the most part, the turnovers of the Dolphins won the game for the Bills. The turnovers of the Titans won the game for the Bears. That cannot be the same discussion that we're having coming out of this coming Sunday in week 2. And then, of course, turnovers on defense. They had a couple of moments. Quandre Diggs had a nice deflection that could have been intercepted. Thought Arden Key had a nice swat down that I think a couple of people would have liked to see him come up with as a pick. And then Ernest Jones forcing pressure on Caleb Williams in the red zone, almost creating a turnover for Tavondre Sweat. They're on the precipice of doing these things, but again, it's been a turnover drought going back to last season. I know last year's defense is not this year's defense, but those 3 things should win them the game.
They got to find more success on early downs as well. The 3rd and longs put them in too many binds last weekend.
But it's more to me, Lucas, about the penalties than it was about because I know they had a couple of first down runs that went for, then all of a sudden you're at 2nd and 9. But I really didn't feel that their early down play calling was poor. I just felt like all of a sudden when you run that 1st and 10 run and NPF gets a false start or something like that to put you behind the sticks, I think there was more of that than it was lack of play calling success on first down.
It's just so easy to when you have an offensive coach, the quarterback coach, all those things. Brian Callahan, his history with the quarterbacks he's worked with, to have big plays flashing through your minds. This is not necessarily a big play offense that lives off of 30, 40-yard X plays. They need to progress the chains. They need to get first downs. They got to get out of the 2nd and 15s, 3rd and 9s that they were in far too often through 4 quarters last Sunday.
Coming up next, Will Levis gets compared to Josh Allen quite a bit in terms of his physical traits and talent. So, through 10 starts, what is Will Levis versus what Josh Allen was through his first 10 starts? I went back and watched both over the course of the last couple of days. I got some notes for you that we will dive into together. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Check out their private dining room in Midtown. This space accommodates 40 people, and all you got to do is book it and show up. Hattie B's team does the rest. But just for lunch today, visit any one of their 6 locations: the Factory at Franklin, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, and the Nashville Airport. This show is proud to partner with Nashville's best hot chicken. Be sure to download the Hattie B's app today. You get a free dessert just by doing so, and go to lunch at Hattie B's.
Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. So, a lot of comparisons between Josh Allen and Will Levis as quarterback prospects. So, Levis threw 10 starts versus Josh Allen threw 10 starts. I went back and watched all these games on Game Pass, and I've got the box scores in front of me as well. Do you remember? So, the 2018 draft is a really talented quarterback class, right? It's Allen, it's Lamar, if I'm not mistaken, Baker, and Sam Darnold a part of that as well. Do you remember who the starting quarterback for the Bills was at the start of the 2018 season after Josh Allen is drafted with the 7th overall pick?
Was it Peterman?
He lost the job, or rather not lost the job, but they did not feel he was ready to play. And so Nathan Peterman started the game against the Robert Walsh's Baltimore Ravens. Now, that score of that game where Josh Allen makes his first appearance, he's not a starter because Peterman starts the game, but the Ravens get up 40-0 on the Bills in the third quarter, and coming out of the half, the Peterman throws one of the worst interceptions I have ever seen in my life. Here is his stat line from that game.
Wait. Before you do that, go ahead, Jackson. The breaking news is that there is no news. The Titans have 0 injury designations for Sunday's game against the New York Jets.
How about that?
When is the last time a head coach of the Tennessee Titans on a Friday before a game could say, I have nothing to tell you? 0.
I can't remember a time. It's been so long. I don't know that it ever happened under Vrabel or Malarkey.
Last week it was D-Hop questionable, Adams and Otis Reese out.
Yep.
Today it is 0.
Well, that's good news. So we will see what this looks like in its most full form in week 2 against the Jets at home. So that is great news. It's been a long time since the Tennessee Titans have had 0 injury designations for a roster at this point. So that's great. They'll walk in to Nissan Stadium with their full complement of weapons on both offense and defense and try and get a game against the Jets. Do you want the Peterman stat line now?
So Nathan Peterman's stat line when he started week one of Josh Allen's rookie year for the Buffalo Bills. Allen behind Nathan Peterman in the week 1 depth chart. What did Peterman do?
The Peterman was 5 of 18 for 24 passing yards and 2 interceptions in 2.5 quarters of football before then first-year coach Sean McDermott said, all right, it can't get much worse. Let's throw Josh Allen out there. Now, of course, Josh Allen, super raw coming out of Wyoming, and he ended up going 4-6 in his first 10 starts as an NFL quarterback versus Levis, who is 3-7 in his first 10 starts, and of course with the win. Now, what I will say is going back and watching these games, Allen never had the game that Levis had against Atlanta in his debut. He never had that at any point in his first 10 starts. It was always pretty rough going, and they went on a stretch where they lost 4 straight games with him in that 2018 season. But the takeaways that I had from going back and watching Josh Allen versus going back and watching Will Levis is that with Levis, he is a more refined player at the quarterback position than was Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming, which, if you remember Josh Allen, it took him about 2.5, 3 years before he became Josh Allen, unstoppable force. And when I watched the kind of plays that McDermott, and forgive me, I don't remember the offensive coordinator offhand for the Bills in 2018, but when I was watching the play calls that they were having, one, they left Shady McCoy out to dry in that season because it's just a bunch of handoffs up the middle to Shady McCoy. His body had to be hurting in that 2018 season. And the rest of it was they didn't trust Allen to push the ball down the field, even though he has this ridiculous arm, because they were afraid he was going to, 1, put the ball in harm's way, 2, throw it so hard that the receivers were not going to be able to make a catch on that. Flacco has had that problem before with, I think Anquan Bolden talks about the time that Joe Flacco broke Torrey Smith's finger. He threw a ball so hard.
It was Brian Daboll, by the way.
Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator of the Bills at the time, now the head coach of the New York Giants. So what you're seeing from Josh Allen in that 2018 season is they're not really letting him be Josh Allen. He's throwing a bunch of passes out to the flat, to the running backs, to the tight ends. He's taking the checkdowns that he's allowed to take. He's taking a lot of unnecessary sacks, and then when he gets frustrated because he's not able to move the ball effectively, he does the thing that Josh Allen still does to this day, which he's just able to run you over and make plays with his legs, versus Levis, that is much more of the refined player at the quarterback position coming out of Kentucky, an older player, obviously, when he was drafted in the NFL versus Josh Allen coming out in 2018.
And playing at a much higher level of college football than Josh Allen did at Wyoming.
Yes. But the traits of Allen, the more that I watch Josh Allen, the less that I think the Levis comparison is an apt one. Because, yeah, they do have supernatural arm strength. But Josh Allen and his rushing ability is second only, and I've said this before, to Cam Newton. That's the best comparison for Josh Allen. He's Cam Newton, but more accurate throughout the course of his career. And obviously, Josh Allen's accuracy has gotten significantly better.
Cam Newton, a much better runner than Josh Allen.
Cam Newton, obviously a much better runner than Josh Allen, but that's the closest comparison that you could find. Levis is not a natural runner. He's not going to look to take over that way. Now, he'll get into some third down situations where he'll try to make a play with his legs, try to scramble or something like that, but he's not that natural of a runner. If you want to get him on the move, you almost have to set up the play to allow him to get on the move, because he's a fine athlete. He's a good enough athlete. And he's, at Penn State, he was a running quarterback. I know he wasn't crazy about his role at the time, but that's something that he does have in his bag. You gotta put him in position to use it, though. Whereas Allen, when Allen would hit a wall, he'd just run through the wall. That's what it was in his rookie season. Now, that Bills team was also terrible at the time. If you go back and look at who the Bills were putting out there around Josh Allen, it was a pretty sorry set of skill position players, other than Shady McCoy, who was still a pretty good player at that point in his career. One of the 4 wins that Josh Allen got in his first 10 starts, do you remember, was against the Tennessee Titans in Buffalo.
Nick Williams?
Nick Williams drop. Titans legend. Mariota put it right in the bucket. Watching that game again, I didn't cover that game in person. I wasn't there in 2018 in Orchard Park when that went down. But watching that play again, I relived all the emotions of that, because they had the game in hand, and Nick Williams literally just let it go through his hands.
I'm not sure a Titans quarterback has made a more perfect pass than that pass to Nick Williams.
Well, he was wide open, wasn't he?
He was wide open. Wide open.
Couldn't have been more open. Couldn't have been more just the, if you are a wide receiver, I want the ball thrown this way kind of pass.
That's where the Vrabel emotions on the sideline started, because that's the first time in 2018. That's Mike's first year. That's the first time you see Mike standing up, hunched over, drop his head, look up, the whole thing, right?
One of the first Vrabel GIFs maybe coming from that game.
Oh, no, that was the first Vrabel GIF. Yes, absolutely.
I was watching that game with my dad at a sports bar in Birmingham, Alabama, a bar full of Bills fans. And we were the only Titans people there. And a very nice gentleman came up to me and was just chatting with me because he grew up with Brett Kern in Buffalo. So we were talking about that. That is my memory from that game. But yes, heartbreaking loss. That was a continuation of the curse of the rookie quarterback against the Tennessee Titans. What was Allen's stat line in that game?
Oh, in the Titans game? Yeah. I can pull it up very quickly if you give me just a second. I have Josh Allen against the Tennessee Titans. Let's see. He was 10 of 19 for 82 yards, an interception, and a sack.
Wow.
So again, people thought Josh Allen was terrible in watching him. And that's when you watch Levis, it's not that he's objectively terrible. It's that some of the decision-making and some of the accuracy stuff, you just don't trust him yet. But it was grounding to go back and Josh Allen is a very specific example, right? Because I said the more that I watch Josh Allen his first 10 starts, the more that I think the Levis comparisons to him are way the hell off, because Levis came in with way more in his tool bag than Josh Allen did.
I feel like the Levis-Allen comparison was less about their skill sets. Obviously, there were similarities, the huge arm, big, physically imposing quarterbacks. Allen a little bit bigger than Levis, but I feel like a lot of the comparisons were also about just some of their characteristics, their concerns coming out. Like with Allen, obviously it was about the accuracy. What was the completion percentage that was just going around constantly out of Wyoming? And this idea
it was under 50%.
Yeah, exactly. And this idea that
in this game against the Titans, his completion percentage, no, that's his rating. He had a 42.0 rating in this game. Oof.
But it was that the discussion around Allen was, I don't know that you can fix those kind of accuracy issues in the NFL, right? Like that's the type of that's hard to fix. And for the most part, he did. But just in terms of the decision making and the turnovers and some of those concerns, because Levis' completion percentage at Kentucky wasn't like astoundingly bad. I mean, he was 65% plus in each of the 2 years at Kentucky. But I feel like it was more about the concerns were similar around both, as opposed to, and there were some similar traits, but then we kind of overblow that into saying they were the same kind of prospect coming out.
What I will acknowledge is they both play with this kind of just blinding rage when they get in certain situations. The difference is Allen can do these things. Will Levis is not physically imposing. I mean, he is physically imposing, but he's not what Josh Allen is. Josh Allen is a different species from Will Levis at this point. Point being, accuracy can be coached. And Josh Allen is an incredible athlete. So that he got there eventually, it is surprising because you don't see somebody go from that raw to that refined to where now, I mean, the only reason we don't talk about Josh Allen more is because Patrick Mahomes exists. Josh Allen is the better athlete at the quarterback position. Pat is the better quarterback, but Josh Allen would be the way that we talk about Patrick Mahomes if Pat wasn't in the picture right now. And of course, you can't really. But Lucas, who else is even on that? Who's even in that conversation with the two of them?
Sure, and just from a talent perspective, I see what you're saying, but we also talk about Pat that way because of the wins and the championships, which Allen, however much you want to attribute it to Mahomes that he hasn't.
Keeps running into the guy.
Yeah, Allen has not crossed that threshold in a way that even Burrow has. Right? And Lamar Jackson's gotten closer to getting to the Super Bowl than Josh Allen has.
He has played in an AFC. Wait, has Lamar played in it? Yeah, they played the AFC Championship game last year against the Chiefs.
Right? The fumble on the goal line, they probably win that game if not for that fumble.
So but you could argue that Josh Allen himself has been closer to beating Patrick Mahomes at, out-dueling him as a quarterback from that game that got the rules changed. The overtime rules changed a couple of years ago.
Sure. But if you want to talk about athleticism from the quarterback position, I mean, Lamar Jackson is there. If you're just talking about pure athleticism,
I don't think he's the same kind of athlete as Josh Allen. He's faster. His second reaction runs are faster, but it's a very different conversation.
Allen made great progress in year 2. Like he took a big step forward, right? And the Bills got to the playoffs. They lose in that overtime game, I think, wild card overtime game to the Texans.
McDermott has been to the playoffs 6 of the last 7 seasons.
Yes, and then Allen's numbers skyrocket in 2020. What happened in 2020? Who did the Bills get in 2020?
I don't remember.
Stephon Diggs.
Oh, okay.
Stephon Diggs, who had a 1,500-yard season for the Buffalo Bills in 2020. Allen's numbers shoot up by how many yards? Total yards on the season, passing, 1,500. Almost exactly. So you saw those numbers stay up, but the turnovers didn't really decrease. If anything, they've kind of increased over the years for Allen. In fact, his number of interceptions per season since his second year have slowly ticked up from 9 to 10 to 15 to 14 and last year to 18. Which is why I have questions about Josh Allen this year with the wide receiver core that surrounds him that does not have, unless Keon Coleman just grabs that role by the reins and becomes a Rookie of the Year candidate, you don't feel great about the wide receiver core in Buffalo.
No, but you feel great about the quarterback.
Yes, but
I know you're down on the Bills. We've had this conversation
I'm down
before.
On the Bills,
we don't need to relive
it. I do think.
But Lucas, I'm watching that game against the Cardinals and seeing everything that he can do when they get backed up, and that's not something that a lot of quarterbacks can do, right?
For sure. That was the Josh Allen experience of putting the team on his back, 2 rushing, 2 passing touchdowns. But I'm not that high on the Bills because I don't think Josh Allen is the type of player that is going to lift his team into a championship level.
But this isn't a conversation about the Bills. This is a conversation about Will Levis in his first 10 starts and the player that he is. Who else is he compared to more? Carson Wentz after Sunday. Now maybe that's an interesting study to go back and watch Wentz. It would take me another week, and then we'd be talking about their first 11 starts as opposed to their first 10. But I came away from that not not seeing the comparison between Josh Allen and Will Levis. I saw it less after watching their first 10 starts next to one another than I had going into that, or than I had it in my head going into that rewatch.
But is your point that Allen was not a finished product by any stretch?
Allen wasn't even close. Allen wasn't even close. And I think that is something that you can also attribute to age, because there's about a 4-year difference when Allen gets drafted in the league versus when Levis gets drafted in the league, right? We talked about this yesterday when you asked Ernest Jones what it's like talking to the young guy, not realizing that Levis is in fact older than Ernest Jones, the 4-year starter linebacker.
Ernest Jones was winning a Super Bowl in 2021 when Levis had just gotten to Kentucky.
No, I understand your point, but what I'm saying is he's a more developed quarterback, which you can almost look at, if you want to spin it negatively, you can look at and say, well, he doesn't have as high a ceiling. I mean, he doesn't have as high a ceiling as Josh Allen. Very few people have as high a ceiling as Josh Allen.
Yeah, that's why he was the number 7 pick in the 2018 draft.
Correct. So all that to say that those comparisons are not apt to me after rewatching it, and less so after rewatching it in their first 10 starts. 615-737-1045 is how you jump into the conversation. Let's go to Steve up next.
How you doing, buddy? I know you sound congested, but you're taking something. You owe Lucas dinner and beverages and everything, because there is no way Lamar Jackson is not the most elite athlete at quarterback. Now, let's stop the Will Levis comparison. I don't want him to be Josh Allen either. I want Will Levis to be Will Levis, but if
you should want him to be Josh Allen.
Huh?
You should want him to be Josh Allen.
No, I don't want him to be Josh Allen.
You don't want to be going toe-to-toe every year in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes? You don't want to have a quarterback that's damn near his equal? That's crazy.
Buck, listen to me. You got to take it for what it's worth. Let's let these coaches, okay, not make it difficult for them. Let's shift the tight end over. It's a brand new system. For all practical purposes, he's still a rookie. I don't care what you say. And I'm tired of the comparisons. I'm going to let Will Levis be Will Levis. Quit making comparisons. I think we have a better receiving core. And I think Will Levis is going to be just fine if y'all don't downtrod him like the damn New York media. But you do owe Lucas dinner and beverages, because Lamar Jackson's the best athlete to play quarterback.
Yeah, I disagree strongly.
I disagree take Venmo and Zelle.
I'd also like to go to dinner.
You're not going to dinner. Neither of you are getting dinner from me.
I'm going to request you every day until you send me money.
I'd be curious, because did both of them go through the combine? Like, do everything at the combine?
Allen and Levis?
Allen and Lamar. Like, just out of curiosity, if we're going to compare, like, actual athleticism based on the metrics, I would be curious to go back and see, vertical versus 40 versus all this kind of stuff.
I would, too. I think Lamar is a better athlete than Josh Allen.
I think that they are both excellent athletes.
Yep,
and that their athleticism is on a higher plane than just about everybody. Because it's not like
true.
Pat is an athlete, but he's not those two. Pat is the better quarterback, and ultimately that is what continues to elevate him above both Lamar and Josh Allen. 615-737-1045. You can jump in. Last call for phone calls. If you got them, we'll update the polls, get you over to Blaine and Zach. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Oh, it's the end of the week. Not really, though. Lucas has high school football, Nashville SC, and Titans radio. I've got a day off. I don't know what to do with myself tonight and tomorrow. But I've got Titans and Jets. On Sunday, we'll have the League Company Countdown to kickoff for you. Of course, it's a great weekend of college football. Tonight, you will have Arizona and K-State, a game between two ranked opponents in the world of college football, and it will be interesting to see who comes out of that. You said Brad did the Arizona game, what, last week?
Yeah, on ESPN Plus. Brad Hopkins did, yep.
Do we think, could Notre Dame lose to Purdue this weekend?
That's another one. We didn't mention it.
Notre Dame at Purdue this weekend. Two terrible, terrible teams at this point. Purdue having only played one game on the season, Notre Dame coming off the most embarrassing loss of the calendar college football season to Northern Illinois at home.
After one of the most impressive wins in recent history for Notre Dame football.
Going to A&M and winning is the thing that Notre Dame football never does.
And I know A&M, people don't think of A&M as a contender and all these things. And when they think of A&M, they think of Jimbo leaving and the exodus in the portal. Lot of really good players, lots of five-star talent stuck around in College Station. And for Notre Dame to go down there and be the bigger, badder, more athletic team to actually win the rock fight at A&M was one of their more impressive wins that I can remember on the road, and they responded to it by turning around and fumbling the bag against NIU, where we were all laying the red carpet out for Notre Dame to walk into the college football playoff, which they still might, right? If they run the table, of course, an 11-1 Notre Dame would be in the college football playoff. But a lot more people are going to be paying attention to that Purdue game than before, for sure.
Vanderbilt going on the road to Georgia State, trying to get a 3-0 start under Clark Lee. That would be Clark Lee's first 3-0 start as the head coach of Vanderbilt. And then also you have 100 Miles of Hate coming up this weekend between WKU and the MTSU Blue Raiders with Derek Mason. Not that Derek Mason, but the Vanderbilt Derek Mason, now at the helm of MTSU.
Also, the Music City Grand Prix is this weekend at Nashville Superspeedway.
I completely forgot.
It's on Sunday. We'll see if weather cooperates, but it is on.
That's the only... other than Titans fans having to deal with a lack of parking this weekend, that's really the worst part of the stadium.
An unfortunate casualty.
The Music City Grand Prix getting shipped out to Lebanon and running the race on the first, or I guess week 2 of the NFL season.
The home opener, yeah.
Really not setting up the Music City Grand Prix for success, because we have enjoyed being a big part of that event for the last 2 seasons.
It was great. It was in August every year, right before everything cranks up for football. With that being said, I was walking around downtown yesterday, and I saw a ton of people in race gear walking around and Team Penske gear and all these things. So the crowd,
because I was genuinely concerned that the crowd was going to take a hit because of, it's going to be less than it would be if it was just in the footprint of downtown Nashville the way that it has been.
People are going to show up. It's the last race of the season as well, in the IndyCar season. So IndyCar fans are going to be in Nashville in droves, I think, this weekend. It'll be a busy weekend. Jets fans coming into town too. So maybe stay away from downtown if you're a local. Or don't, and just go in the thick of it.
Just foray into the madness. 615-737-1045. Last call for phone calls. Let's go to Taylor up next.
Hey, Buck. Hey, how's it going? It's been a long time since I've called in, but I've been meaning to call in for weeks. But I always kind of forget because I work during the day. But I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you. You do commercials like for Two Rivers Ford and different things like that. But there's a podcast that I listened to, I think it just ended, but for the last month or so, in every episode, a advertisement, a read that you do for, I think it's Two Rivers for the Ford Bronco, comes on this true crime podcast called Flashpoint. And it's weird because they do all these national commercials, and then there's this local one, and it's not done by anybody locally. It's a tenderfoot, it's a pretty big podcast company, and none of the other commercials are local. So I'm like, why the hell is Buck? But they don't mention your name, but I can recognize your voice. Do this Ford Bronco commercial every single episode. It's just so weird. It's in it's just in the middle of these other commercials. And I'm like, that is so strange. I'm here in Nashville, but a Buck Rising Ford, commercial comes on along with these other random nationally commercialized, products. So I don't know if you've ever heard that or anybody's ever let you know about that, but thought I'd let you know.
Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate it. I have been told that before, so I do those Two Rivers recorded spots. Not that this matters to the audience, but yeah, I pop up in a lot of random podcast feeds because Two Rivers has a deal with, I think it's iHeart, so if it's on iHeartMedia podcast, it's like a B-roll thing that they plug in your podcast. So you can't escape me, no matter where you go. Polls, please. You weren't.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What is the most positive story you've seen in sports this week? Karen says Flava Flav giving Jordan Childs a bronze clock to replace the medal she lost from the Olympics. That is something that happened at the VMAs.
That's
last
awesome.
Night. Yeah,
I didn't get a chance to watch the VMAs, but that is a great move by Flava Flav.
Kenneth says South Alabama coach Major Applewhite getting his first win as a head coach by hanging 87 on his opponent. Was it Northwestern State?
Northwestern State.
Yeah, that sounds like the type of school that you just make up when you're talking about, any cupcake that a team is playing. It was not Major Applewhite's first win as a head coach. He did have a 3-year run as the head coach at Houston before going into the Nick Saban rehab for
Didn't he get
fired
in some
coaches.
Trouble at SMU?
Yeah.
Right?
I can't remember. He was never at SMU.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said Houston.
I can't remember what the controversy was around.
I don't know that it was an outright
Applewhite.
Scandal or anything like that.
it was
Maybe some
something like that.
violations.
It was
some
something
kind of
like that.
NCAA violations. I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Reckless
but
speculation.
Yeah, he did go to the Nick Saban rehab for fired coaches, and hung 87 on poor Northwestern State. Several people saying Kumar Rocker getting to the big leagues and Tracy Rocker getting to go to his son's MLB debut with his wife. Jack says Bon Jovi saving somebody from pedestrian bridge. We gave the Jeffrey Simmons charity event tickets to Jordan, who had that submission.
Yes, it is great work by Bon Jovi. Again, if you see something happening on the pedestrian bridge, don't just walk by people. Like it's that's what bothered me most about that video. The amount of people just walking by that woman as if nothing's going on, when she's clearly, contemplating doing something like jumping off the bridge.
What is the most correctable issue the Titans had in week 1? 46.7% majority going special teams, but 44.6% a close second for Levis mistakes. Only 8.7% say pass protection.
I think immediate, it's probably special teams. Long term, we'll see if they can correct Will Levis's decision-making or improve Will Levis's decision-making. I don't know that that's just the quicker turnaround is the special teams corrections.
Which college football team should be on the highest upset alert on Saturday? Very narrow edge going to Oregon, who has to go to Oregon State. 28.7% of the audience say it's Oregon. 28.2% say it's Mizzou. Number 6 Mizzou at home against number 24 Boston College. Missouri has yet to be tested. And I apparently lied because the majority actually was 29.6% saying Oklahoma. Oklahoma should be on the biggest upset alert against Tulane. Very close, though, between those three.
I haven't gotten to watch an Oregon game yet. Is Dylan Gabriel just underwhelming? Like, what's the deal with Oregon?
I didn't watch the opener against Idaho, where they only put up 24, but it was a shootout against Boise State. They could not stop the Boise State running backs, whose name is escaping me. He's going to be an NFL player, and they had to win on a last-second field goal. But I think I agree. Oklahoma at home against Tulane, coming off a sluggish performance against Houston, maybe looking ahead to Tennessee. A lot of eyes should be on Norman this weekend. What is one matchup the Titans must win against the New York Jets? Brian says Levis against himself. John says you got to win the turnover battle, which they did not. In Chicago, it was 3-1 in favor of Chicago. Coach Wilo on Twitter says Cheeto and Snead against the Jets wide receivers.
I mean, it's the interior defensive line of the Titans against that Jets offensive line that did not cover itself in glory in San Francisco. But Levis against himself is a pretty good one.
Who is the more athletic quarterback? 73% of the audience say it's Lamar Jackson over Josh Allen.
In an unapproved poll.
Yeah, and you're wrong again. Man, tough week for you.
Okay, you go ahead and be on the side of Twitter and see if that's a winning argument for you.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Thanks for letting us screw around this week. We appreciate it. Lucas is on My TV 30 tonight in Rockvale. I will be back on the radio on Sunday morning with the Lead Company Countdown to Kickoff with the rest of the crew. We'll get you ready for Sunday's game between the Titans and the Jets. Have a great weekend otherwise.